What is going on, everyone? We are back for another episode 3. Today we are going to set up the API and set up our mono repository to have fully typed requests and fully typed WebSocket access. So what is our objective today? Since we are going to use Socket.io on the backend and the front end to deal with the WebSocket connection, I want to make sure that all of my types are perfectly typed so I interact with everything flawlessly. For this, I'm going to create a monorepo. I'm going to grab the current project that is now on SpeedLou new, and I'm going to put it on a monorepo with my API. Let's start by creating the folder for our monorepo. We open the new terminal and we can create here mkdir SpeedLou monorepo. Alright, so inside of this folder we can go inside of the folder with Visual Pseudocode. Now inside of here we need to create a directory for apps, and inside of the apps we will create mobile and API. Great. So inside API we are going to run everything associated to our API. Inside mobile we are going to have all of our Expo code. So let's go ahead and transition everything into mobile. We can grab everything and paste everything into mobile. It might take a little bit. There it is. We got everything on mobile. And for the API we need to do a little bit of a different setup. For the API, I already have a lot of stuff done on a previous API that I had. I think I can use most of the stuff of the API that I had. Okay, there it is. As you can see, we have all of our API stuff. We have tons of functions that are working. The API is in Express. I was configuring it in a way that it was running on a VPS with Reddit also for rate limiting and some other cool stuff that I was doing so I could have full functionality for sockets and for server API. Looks really nice. We will not use this like this right away, I think, because I need to make some modifications and we will have a more robust infrastructure when it comes to this project. I want to put this configured as a monorepo, so I will proceed with that. Alright, here we are. We got it working. We have our mobile folder with everything of mobile, and we have our API folder with everything about the API. Basically, what I did for the monorepo is very straightforward. I decided to create an apps directory and a shared directory. This is for the future, the database and the utils. For the mobile, I let my node modules installed in here, and for the API I did the same thing. This is easier for us to essentially be able to manage the packages without having to share packages on the whole monorepo, and this works extremely well. The next thing I want to configure is the GitHub actions for deploying the API. Normally with GitHub actions I would just need the GitHub action to deploy the API because the deployment is done by hand. We can later on maybe implement Expo workflows, but I'm not really familiarized with it. So as you can see, we have an issue here. I don't know what this is. The project did not build, unfortunately. Let's do npm install. Alright, the node modules were not perfectly installed. Here it is, we got the project running perfectly. What I want to do now is I want to configure my GitHub action for deploying the API into my server. So let's get into that. Okay, we got it. So this is essentially an action that will segment everything into one folder, and then it will copy the folder through SSH into my VPS. And I already have configured everything, so I just need to run it once the VPS is ready. I want to redo a little bit the API so it's more organized. I will restructure everything and I'll see you in a bit. Okay, we did our redoing of the API. We got it running. So if I do npm run dev, it is going to run in localhost port 3000. And as you can see, I had my Telegram set up for me to have logs every time I enter or I start the API. which is working out of the box. So I will explain a little bit of what was done. We have a function that creates a Redis adapter for us to have rate limiting. We are going to create a Redis adapter based on if our environment is development or not. If it is not development, it creates the pub client and the sub client, and then it goes into here, it creates a new Redis, it gets the Redis config. As you can see, this is the configuration for Redis. We have the client here for feedback saying that it's connected, error, or reconnecting. And this is the first action that it does because we depend on the Redis instance a lot. Then we go to create the app instance. This is the HTTP app instance. You can see that we create Express. We use Helmet. The Helmet is essentially a package for being able to increase a little bit our security. And we do a rate limiter also with our Redis instance. As you can see, we do a Redis client. If we do have a Redis client, we create a Redis store with our Redis instance, and it sends the command for us to limit the API calls based on the rate limiter from Redis. We use the limiter. Next up, we use our router. The router comes from the routes. Then after we use the router, we create our server. This is for creating our HTTP server. Basically, we grab our server and we say, okay, you are going to create a server. This is for graceful shutdown for the server. Cloud is very helpful on this. Then the socket manager, he created a class. Inside of this class, he calls this.io for creating the socket server, which has the server and gets all of the stuff and does all of the stuff correctly for the WebSocket server. It runs on the constructor. Then he sets up the Redis adapter. This is also good because we already gave him the Redis adapter previously from options, so the pub client and the sub client, and he gets the pub client and the sub client from here, and he does a normal create adapter for the Redis adapter. The Redis adapter is very important because we are working with clusters, and when you work with clusters, you don't know how to track which socket is being sent info and is returning info. So you need the Redis adapter to essentially track rooms. Very important. After the Redis adapter, he initializes the namespace. We have two namespaces, the versus namespace, and we have the track namespace, and then he initializes the normal namespace just for on connection. Then we have some cleanup stuff. This is just for when the server closes. And then we have server.listen. This is essentially the Telegram implementation. Then, yeah, that's essentially what we did. All right, I think that was a good episode for today. We redid our API. We are ready to move on. Thank you very much for watching. I will hopefully see you tomorrow.